Hello, viewers, and welcome to London Lights. Today, I welcome to our program former Londoner Torrey Antone, now of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Torrey, welcome to the program.
I am honored to be here with you, Dan. I tell you, I've looked forward to this, and I have one correction: Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is
Okay,
where I'm from.
okay, got
I'll
it.
take Tulsa. They're about 100 miles away from us, but Oklahoma City is where I'm at right now.
All right, thank you. Well, I want to start by reading your bio, and it's a little bit longer than a typical one, but I think it's important I cover it all. So, Torrey Antone is a Christian indigenous singer musician based currently in the heart of Native America, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Torrey was born in London, Ontario, Canada, and spent his early childhood years living on the Oneida settlement near London. His parents, Kenneth and Shirley Antone, were of Oneida and Mohawk nations. They served in music and pastoral ministry at Oneida and into surrounding Native communities, sharing the gospel. The deeply rooted musical heritage of Torrey's parents led him, along with his brother and two sisters, to begin singing and performing as second generation in music. In 1961, the Antones moved to Oklahoma City, where they began further outreach to the largest native populated state in America. There they began a music ministry. In 1970, after years of traveling, when Torrey and his siblings were on summer breaks from school, the family entered into full-time touring throughout North America, Mexico, and stints overseas. It was during this period Torrey began learning to play instruments and was well known in the industry as the bass guitarist for the group. Not only did he perform in live concerts, but was also sought after as a studio musician, working with other performers in Nashville in some of the most elite studios there. Finally, the Antones toured in their own private tour bus. I was always jealous of that. Traveling more than 100,000 miles per year and performing more than 260 dates per year. They had appeared on several national-wide TV appearances in Canada and the US, playing in large stadiums, universities and coliseums, festivals, and fairs, with notable performances at the Montreal Olympics, Vancouver's World Expo '86, and regular appearances on Nashville's Grand Ole Opry. Wow, that's a mouthful, Torrey.
It
Lots of
is.
experience.
Yes, I tell you, you know what? I think when we started out as kids, we used to be just like every other musician or kid growing up. You'd run to the TV when you saw something on there that you really wanted to watch. Grand Ole Opry was probably one of them. There was another program that was national in Oklahoma or in the United States. I don't know if it was in Canada very much, but it was national in the United States, called Gospel Singing Jubilee. And we used to get up every Sunday morning before church and watch that program as kids. Well, you know what? It wasn't long after we got into full-time singing and touring. We were on that show. We were invited to be on that television show. So it was kind of like to do that. And then a couple years later, we were heard by a talent agency that used us. With fact, that was our agency at that time, our booker, but she booked us on the Grand Ole Opry, and we did shows every year there for I don't know how many years. And they would always schedule us on holidays, occasions, like it would be Labor Day or 4th of July in the United States or Memorial Day. We did those three, and it was their biggest crowds because everybody was coming to the Opry. And they always booked us on there. So we were something different, all dressed in our native regalia and so on. So
Oh,
it was a lot of fun. Those were great days.
well, that's fantastic. I remember I used to watch a show called Midnight Special
Yes.
in
Yeah.
the early 1970s. I mean, that was a fantastic program. It would start about midnight, and you'd see some of your favorite singers and performers there. And I remember a band coming on called Redbone, and they
Yep.
did a great song, became a huge hit. Come and Get Your Love. They were featured in the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack as well. But
Yeah.
they were on the program, Midnight Special, all these other rock stars, and they came out with all their native attire. It was
Yeah.
quite an impression and quite a performance.
Redbone was probably one of the top, I would say, groups at that time that had made it that were all native. And unfortunately, some of those guys have passed away now. But I tell you, they were a wonderful influence. In fact, I heard on a commercial, just last week or so, a national commercial is using that song, Come Get Your Love. So,
Oh, it's a
yeah.
lovely tune. My kids go crazy when that comes on the radio. Um, but you first grew up on the Oneida settlement. I think your dad was from there.
Yep.
Your mom was from another settlement, Six Nations. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. Near Brantford, Ontario. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been on the Oneida settlement near London, and there is a different feel as soon as you get onto the settlement. But I assume you have some great memories of growing up there.
Oh, yeah. I was born right there at the Victoria Hospital. And London, for me, uh, to this day, because that is my hometown, because I grew up there on the Oneida settlement right near London there. Goodness, we watched TV, CFPL all the time, Channel 10 there, and watched all the great shows that growing up in Canada. And I think one of my fondest memories of being up there was being with all of our family. When we moved to Oklahoma City, we didn't really have any family down here. So it was important for me growing up in Canada with our family, sitting down on, I think it was Saturday nights and watching Tommy Hunter, if I remember right.
Oh, yeah, we all did that. One of the things I want to do in this program is talk about Robbie Robertson.
Yes.
He was with the band, of course, played with Bob Dylan, Ronnie Hawkins, and then the band went on their own and became a group that influenced even the Beatles.
Yeah.
So very talented guy. And he spent some time also on the Six Nations settlement. And I just want to read a quote, and I want to get your comment on this, Torrey.
Yeah.
Celebrated Indigenous musician and songwriter Robbie Robertson says that the memories of childhood days spent at the Six Nations of the Grand River Reserve still permeate all of his art, and that he walked away from one of the most legendary rock bands of all time because he feared for his bandmates' lives. But talking about the time on the reserve, he said, it lives in me. He said that from Canada's largest reserve in Ohsweken. The guitarist was about 8 years old when, on a trip with his mom to see relatives on the reserve, it struck him that everybody there could play or sing or dance or do something with music, he reported to the CBC. Let me read this quote as well. He was introduced to serious storytelling at a young age on the Six Nations Indian Reserve. The oral history, the legends, the fables, and the great holy mystery of life. His mother was Mohawk and Cayuga, who was born and raised there. Whether it was traditional music or story songs, like Lefty Fritzell's The Long Black Veil, or sacred mythologies told to him by the elders, what he heard on the reserve had a powerful impact on him. At the age of 9, he told his mother he wanted to be a storyteller when he grew up. She smiled and said, I think you will. So those were the stories that in his voice became his song. And that was what he remembered. Can you relate to that at all, Torrey?
Well, you know what? I kind of can. I can a little bit because I remember, Native people, I'm not saying other people groups don't have music, but Native people are really grounded in music. Our tribal songs that are original, they have our own languages and so on. And I think when you come from a background like that of music, even when I was growing up at Oneida, I mean, our native church there, we used all our native hymns that were brought forward from many, many years. I think that helps when you come up through that kind of upbringing, especially on a reservation like that. And I think another thing is that sometimes people always say, well, you're never going to amount to much. How are you going to make it in the music business? And somebody like Robbie, who just exploded into the music business and had such a great talent. We mentioned Redbone. There's a lot of different musicians and singers and songwriters that are native background that it's amazing but a lot of them don't have a platform to really get out there and let people see who they are and meet these people. But I think Robbie, I can identify with him to that extent that he was he was one excellent musician. Still, he's just a wonderful guy.
I can tell you, Torrey, you were as well, and you still are, I'm sure. We'll talk about some of our experiences on the stage performing together. And
Yep.
I'm a little jealous of you. You were some bass player. And I think it was your brother played guitar?
No, we had another guitarist. We had a band that was part of our group, and so we had another guitarist that was with us, and we had drummers and keyboard players and so on. Back at that time, a four-piece band was really something to travel around with. So that's kind of what we basically had, was a four-piece band that we traveled with, and most of them were from here in Oklahoma. We had some from Canada too. We had a drummer for years from New Brunswick, Canada, and he joined us. And so we've kind of gone through the musicians. I always used to say, if you're a drummer, and this is the thing that all the drummers we've ever had, they're kind of on their own. They're in their own group. So
Like
you can
hockey.
Right, you can go through drummers pretty quickly, and we did. I don't know how many drummers we had over the years, but that was probably who you're thinking of. Some of the musicians that we had back in that day.
Before we leave Robbie Robertson, there's one more quote. There's a number of wonderful quotes in that book that he wrote called Testimony, and I recommend people read it because there is reference after reference to London, Ontario, Grand Bend, the Oneida Reserve, the Six Nations Reserve. I really recommend the book to people, but this quote I think is quite wonderful and really struck me. So he's talking again about being on Six Nations Reserve. He said, the first time the power of music really struck me was on the Six Nations Indian Reserve. I was about 8 years old, sitting in a kitchen at the house on the Second Line Road. Well, a couple of relatives played guitar. That rang my bell. The sound, the rhythm, the fingers on the strings, the voices blending together in unison and then slipping into harmonies. My uncles and cousins were so lost in the music that it mesmerized me. Sometimes there'd be a mandolin or a violin joining in with Iroquois hand drums and water drums. On the res, there was no other entertainment. Everything was homegrown. Nobody there had any money, honey, and it didn't matter. Things balanced out in other ways, through the wilderness, the Grand River, the changing seasons, and always the dancing and singing. From his earliest impressions, I knew there was a deep beauty in this place. I love this quote. The water we drank straight from the well was cold and clear, and I never knew water could taste so good. We picked wild berries from the fields and grew sweet corn, so tall you could get lost in it. Every day was a celebration. Nature with the three sisters, beans, squash, and corn, like nothing he experienced in the city.
Yeah.
So, that's quite telling that his time on the reserve had such a deep impression on him, and he became such an excellent and influential musician in the pop music scene.
Yeah, he did. And as he writes, as I was listening to what you read there, it brings back memories because that was where my mom was from, the Six Nations Reserve there. My grandmother lived there. My grandfather lived there. And I think of all that, what he's talking about, the corn, the squash, all those things. I remember that. I remember going and picking berries just like he did. And so I can identify with a lot what he's saying. And what's weird is I never knew him. I didn't know for the longest time that they had grown up there. It's kind of ironic. Six Nations has a lot of famous people that have come out of that reservation. Of course, the famous actor Graham Greene, which he is a distant cousin on my mom's side.
Oh, wow.
And then I don't know if you remember, from people that would remember the Lone Ranger, Jay Silverheels, that played Tonto. Well, he's from there, and we knew all his family. And in fact, Jay Silverheels was his stage name. His real name, I could say this, was Harry Smith. That was his real name. But his family, his sister made beautiful pottery, gave some to the Queen when the Queen was on the visit to that part of the Brantford area. And when we got married, my wife and I, we went back to Brantford to be with some of the family up there, and she gave me a beautiful some pottery that she'd made for us for our wedding gift. So it's interesting, but to hear that many people became famous originated from the Six Nations Reserve. Robbie's one of them.
And you kind of get that sense, listening to the music of Robbie Robertson and the band, you can hear that the time that he spent on the reserve in the nature of that impact on the music, and songs like The Wait, Up on Cripple Creek, Showdown Big Sky, Down by the Lazy River, King Harvest, beautiful song, just talks about Simcoe County. Anyways, I have to take a break, Torrey. Stay with us, viewers. We'll be right back with Torrey Antone. Okay, we're back with Torrey Antone of the Singing Antone family. Now, Torrey, I want to talk about the period of time when I got to know you, and that was when there was a thriving gospel music scene in London, Ontario in the early 1970s. I was in a band, the New Covenant Children. We traveled all around. We went to Nashville a number of times. We met up with you. We teamed up and did performances together. And it was a wonderful time. In fact, your name came up last week. I was at a funeral for a Mrs. Galera, and her husband used to run Sammy's pizzeria in downtown London, East London. And they'd have a brunch, gospel music brunch every Sunday afternoon. 1 week your band would be there, and then my band would be there the next week. And we were just talking about the fond memories of having the Singing Antones there. But those were wonderful days, weren't they?
Oh, they were great. Southern gospel music, of course, is big down this way in the South. And I suppose that's how we kind of developed into that type of music genre. But in Canada, way back in the 60s and so on, it was not really around that style. There was more church music, things that you would hear in the choirs or maybe ensembles that would be put together, but nothing like Southern gospel. So when it finally got to Canada, to Ontario, it exploded. And I was just shocked at how quickly it grew, especially in Ontario, and all the bands that came out of there, including New Covenant Children.
Yeah, and the leader of our band, we were kind of unique because we had Neil deGraw, who was a pedal steel guitar player. And I didn't know this, but I guess when we were on vacation, you guys stole him from us. And he played with you. So he wanted me to read these words, and I'm happy to do so. He said, "I'm glad to hear Torrey's going to be on your program. He was a really good bass player, and I believe very involved in his own successful advertising business. As you know, I traveled with the Antones most of my vacations. Shirley offered me a full-time job playing. She didn't know it, but it was equal to what I was offered to play for Charlie Pride. He loved the road trips with the Antones. It was nice being offered the chance, but it just didn't allow because of his commitment to our band. As singers, Kathy and Paul Antone could not be beat, and their whole family was very much respected and accepted wherever they performed. Shirley was the organizer and the one who made things happen. Some of my best memories were the days with the Antones."
Wow, that's great.
You guys had a bus, man. I would love to travel with you guys too.
Yeah, we got our first bus probably back in the early 70s. And it was a Greyhound type bus, and was all converted into bunks and stuff on the bus, and lounge areas and so on. And then in 74, I guess it was, we bought a brand new bus that was bigger and better. And I tell you, that was a joy. That was our home away from home.
I remember those days, and the dream I had was being able to play at Grand Ole Opry, and that never happened for us, but it did happen for you. And that must have been a real thrill to be able to stand on that stage with all the country music legends and do what you did.
I would have to say that we did a lot of different things, but that has always been probably one of my greatest memories, is to play there. Just like you said, because the artists are on, and the artists that would be there the night that we would sing, you got to meet all of them. Connie Smith and and all these different artists that would be on the program with us, people that you grew up hearing and being able to sing on there. And I remember singing, and I remember probably the first time more than I do even our last time we were there. But the first time I remember, we walked out and they have a balcony that kind of wraps around, comes back by the stage, and the lights are from that. And all you can see is lights, but you can see the people up there. And of course, this was the new Opry. I think the first time we sang there was only a week after the new Opry building had been opened in Opryland. So being backstage was something else too. You get your own dressing rooms back there, and all the musicians are walking back and forth. The doors are open. You can go in and jam with them, play, sing. It's a wonderful world, I'll tell you, the Opry.
Well, one of the other native musicians that really impressed me, there's a song by Jackson Browne. I think it made him a star, was Doctor My Eyes. And the guitar solo on that song has always intrigued me because it's so different and so unique and just a beautiful solo. And I found out that when I researched it, that Jesse Davis was the guitarist that played that solo. And he was a native musician, I think from your area, isn't he?
Yes, he's not very far from us. And we knew his dad pretty well. And his dad, in fact, played the bass guitar. And I remember this was going way back in probably the 60s. And he had a nice he bought a brand new Fender Precision bass. And I was so jealous. I wanted a bass like that. And he had one. And his son was playing. I mean, they were playing in a gospel group at that time. And so that was pretty cool to meet him. And then to realize where he went on from there, like you said, with Jackson Browne and George Harrison, he played with Eric Clapton. He worked a lot with Eric Clapton. So he was well respected in the field as a great guitarist.
I recently watched the DVD that I had for the tribute concert to Bangladesh. It was put on by George Harrison. Mm-hmm. All the greats were there on stage with him. Leon Russell, Eric Clapton, as you mentioned, and Jesse Davis. So he was in the top echelon of guitar players at the time.
He sure was.
Now, I don't know, maybe I'm getting off track a little bit, but Leon Russell was one of my favorites. He's always intrigued me. And, I've tried to find out a lot about him, but he was always playing, so I never had time to write a book. This was the only book I could find off Amazon. And he's from your area as well. What is it about your area that impacts on musicians so well?
I don't know. To tell you the truth, we have, and I think I corresponded with you one time that Oklahoma has so many singers and songwriters. All these people that are, of course, some of them are in Tulsa. Like we had Roy Clark. He lives in Tulsa. And then we had, of course, Garth Brooks. He was here. I can't even think of all. Conway Twitty. In fact, if I remember right, Jesse played for Conway Twitty when he first started, because Conway was here in Oklahoma City, and Conway Twitty took Jesse under his wing, and he traveled with him for a while. So Oklahoma is a wonderful environment in music of people of talent, great talent. So we're very privileged.
Well, I want to talk about, First Nations people have a lot of challenges that they're facing, perhaps more than others. I mean, everybody has challenges, but perhaps their challenges are more unique and deeper than ours. But there's this tremendous resource of music that Robbie Robertson and you have referred to that made an impact on them. And that musical outlet, I think, can be so powerful to cope with some of these challenges in life. But for those Native musicians that feel like they're banging their head against the wall, not really going anywhere, and they want to get to that next level of sharing their music with others, do you have any words of advice for them?
I think a lot of Native musicians need to just keep plugging away at it. I mean, the competition today is unbelievable for musicianship, but the doors have been opened up through technology like this, where back in the day, television or radio, or if you had some newspaper interviews, those were things that were vital to probably a lot of people. They were for us. We did a lot of television, but that was a door. Today, there's technology like this where people can get on YouTube and can develop their talent, promote their band better than it used to be. It's a lot easier, I think, today. But with that, with the growth of the internet and as many people that are out there, the competition is still stiff. But at least you have a chance today with a wonderful platform like this, I think, to get out there and play.
Well, Torrey, you grew up on the Oneida settlement near London. We consider you a Londoner. I
Yes.
consider you a London light with all that you've accomplished.
And I even have my Tim Hortons cup right here. I keep my Tim Hortons stuff, and I order Tim Hortons. I order red rose tea. I get coffee crisps that people send to me. We don't have any of that stuff down here. So
I feel sorry for you.
Every Christmas I have some friends that send me some goodies from Canada.
That's great. And I love how on Facebook, when you see a memory of London, like the Simpsons downtown Christmas windows,
yes,
you always comment and say, "Oh, that brings back such good memories."
Oh, it does. It sure does. And I know London has changed a whole lot since the last time I was there. But in fact, I was there probably about 5-6 years ago, and I couldn't believe it. Some of that downtown, the brand new arena downtown, and all these things. London is a cool place. I love London.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks for being on the program, Torrey, and sharing your stories. It's wonderful to see you again and hear from you again. And keep up the good fight. And we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thank you, Dan.